Hello, welcome to my lecture series organized into 4 parts. Today's talk is the last part of my lectures, part 4, application of TM theories to food taste. Before starting part 4, let me briefly review what I have talked in the previous lectures. In part 1, I explained what the metaphysics is for and how the invisible consciousness realities can be imaged by TM theories, and they include CA, CAC, and etc. In part 2, I talked about the subjective experiences in conjunction with life cycles. Part 3 described the new consciousness approaches to food and food-related issues with regard to new definitions and concepts such as food, virtual food, acceptance of food, and so forth. Now, let me talk about today's lecture, part 4, application of TM theories to food taste. That is the most important issue among many others in our food life. Tasting food is a gateway and also goal for many food-related behaviors such as food acceptance, preference, and satisfaction, and also interlinked with many consciousness realities affecting entire CM system. Particularly, the measurements and representation of food taste are important tools for understanding the response of mind with respect to the consumption of food, the external material stimuli. Here is an image in the article Food Technologies 2003 editions, wherein the relationships between food and emotion are described with addressing the importance of mindsets of consumer. There is also branched arrows, one pointing to the sensory system through which we intake food by sensing the appearance and monitoring the contents, whether it is safe enough to accept or not, under Earth's conscious states. Other 2 arrows are directed both to brain and intestine, wherein everything is progressed unconsciously beyond our awareness. Self-cognites its taste and evaluates selfish ways such as good or bad for itself. From the neuroscience perspective, eating generates neural signal patterns in brain, and many other biochemical processes progresses and cooperates with our consciousness system. This schema addresses that taste of food is evaluated and presented under the hierarchical operation structure composed of multiple CML, whereby the important decision-making on the taste of food is conducted at higher layer of consciousness, unconsciously, than that of a conscious sensory system at 5th consciousness layer. In this context, the the portion of the contribution of sensory system for the decision making of food taste is very limited to a small fragments of the entire process as presented by these distribution diagrams. We can explain the process of food tasting using this diagram, composed of 3 sequential steps of process to correlate to the relevant consciousness layers. The first step is the sensorial measurements of food taste and belongs to the preliminary decision-making process at the gateway to CM system belonging to fifth consciousness layer as seen at left. After passing the entrance, food is analyzed and categorized into an intermediate consciousness realities at second steps belonging to sixth consciousness layer as shown in mid, and its taste is evaluated as third steps running at seventh consciousness layer on the basis of available references, including virtual food, food in mind, shaped in the past within own life cycles as shown at right. According to the nature of the sequential processings, any problem in one out of 3 steps makes it difficult to complete the entire process to reach or complete the evaluation process of food taste and may result a wrong consequence. In addition, another problem is the size and the complexity of a database, wherein both the measurable material data and non-measurable subjective experience are included. Among them, experience of CAC, experience of CACM, experience of CACP, and integrated experience of CACP, and also virtual food at higher CML. This is the very reason why current sensory science encounters many difficulties to overcome for the correct estimation of the consumer trends regarding food products. Because of the huge size of the data and the non-measurable nature, the evaluation and the presentation of food taste is comparable to the case of weather forecast, which conducted by multitasking process in a supercomputer with close cooperation between the satellite in the sky far beyond this atmosphere and the weather station on Earth. We are well aware of that the weather of my town is determined by the surrounding regional weather conditions. Nowadays, we can easily confirm it with the help of modern satellite image and communication technologies. No one has objection with regard to the importance of the broad view at higher altitude for the observation of anything on Earth, for the accurate and reliable presentation as like self-explanative nature of the satellite image. These facts make me to rethink about the issue of food taste to make the pertinent image of food taste, because the taste of food is so important to say, It is everything for other food-related issues, including acceptance, preference, satisfaction, and marketing of food business. Food industries knows well how the familiar image is one of the critical factors for the successful marketing of their products, and thus they pay lots of money to popular star players, requesting them performances of satisfying smiles and friendly gestures. Jin knew the popular baseball pitchers in a major league, and Yuna Kim, the world champion of women figure skating, appear on mass medias, including TV and package of food products. It also tells that the image is key and more effective and reliable message to the consumer than any other scientific data. Living beings are in favor of image for the communication as seen at sign language and traffic sign. In this line, the representativeness of food taste has to be one frame of image wherein the above-mentioned three steps are involved. At here, the point is that how can we make an image of food taste in the invisible consciousness world? The unique evidence of the invisible consciousness may be the neural pulse, which are generated is whatever we see visible or think invisibly about anything visible or invisible object. Thus, any behavior, thoughts, and concerns on food and food-related issues will produce the relevant neural signal patterns as talked at previous lecture. For the construction of the image of food taste, I applied the food classification table as described in the previous lecture, part 3. I will show it again for a moment at here to remind it. Applying the classification tables, the evaluation method of food taste with consciousness approaches was developed and defined as the cognitive sensory evaluation of food taste and abbreviated by the CSE method. For the collection of the responses of food consumer, we designed a pertinence questionnaires defined by Cognitive Sensory Evaluation Questionnaire, abbreviated by CSE questionnaire. This is the CSE questionnaires consisted of consciousness dimensions presented by consciousness layer, components for subgroups, and relevant questions to collect consumers' responses. For example, the question of the belief in tradition in 7th consciousness layer dimension is such. Tradition is first factor considered when choosing of food companies, asking to evaluate with 7 scale rating. The CSE questionnaire is illustrated at here, and some of the relevant questions of consciousness dimension tagged in the module of food acceptance because food acceptance and food taste have the identical nature in the operating mechanism. I will talk more about the image-making procedure from the responses of the respondents of the cognitive sensory evaluation survey for a given food. In step 1 and 2, the score obtained from the CSE questionnaires are coded in 7 bits sensory events register to get the sensory event barcode abbreviated by SEB. Step 3 shows how the SEBs are sequentially arrayed to build the cognitive sensory barcode abbreviated by CSB. The step 4 shows all of CSBs of the relevant consciousness layers aligned in parallel according to the concept of the neural signal bundle. In step 5, CSBs are overlapped to generate overall CSB, abbreviated by OCSB. This is the OCSB patterns constructed from the survey with 38 individual university students regarding potato chips. The OCSB shown at bottom is the OCSF frequency type of OCSB of individuals. As noticed in the OCSF patterns, the pattern image of individuals are so different as the fingerprints of individuals are. From the similarity of the OCSF, the respondents are regrouped into 8 subgroups, and thus we can categorize the consumer into groups for their mindsets regarding particular foods. As the local data acquisition is still important both for local and global weather forecast, data analysis is still needed to build and support the image technologies. In this line, the distribution data analysis is also useful to determine the role of each consciousness layers. These figures are the survey results conducted for 3 different consumer groups, as marked with different colors at 4 different consciousness states or mindsets. The mindsets are presented by food acceptance module consisted of 3 colored circles representing the relevant consciousness layer, such that blue for 8th consciousness layer, green for 7th consciousness layer, orange for 6th consciousness layer, and the blank circle indicates the consciousness layer excluded in data processing. The one at upper left represents that of the complete consciousness states that all consciousness layers are included in the data processing. The other 3 figures are those of the incomplete consciousness states, wherein the data of the relevant layers is excluded. When 7th consciousness layers excluded, the difference between the groups is reduced, indicating that 7th consciousness layer is responsible for the difference or individual variances in the response of the CSEQ survey. Someone can feel simultaneously other types of feelings along with the food taste, such as music and visions. This phenomenon is known as synesthesia that belongs to an abnormal case in medical aspects and understood as mystic behaviors. In another aspect, synesthesias between taste and hearings provides for us an opportunity to think about alternative ways of representation of food taste. It also suggests that the visual and audio presentations may be interchangeable and the shareable nature of food taste with others. In this context, I will talk about the musical representation of food taste. Music note is composed with multiple CML and multiple time unit spaces using the same source data used for the cognitive sensory frequency patterns. In composing music, keyboard of pianos were allocated for particular consciousness layers as shown here. Designation of musical instruments and repetition cycles in music composition for each consciousness layers are determined because each consciousness layers are operated at different time units as shown in this table. The musical composing procedures was carried out through several steps as shown here. The source data was obtained from cognitive sensory evaluation test conducted with potato chips. The conversion of source data into musical elements such as melody, tempo, and rhythm was proceeded. This is the music score of food taste of potato chips for an individual subject and consisted of 4 lines which represent the responses of the relevant layer of consciousness. It can be used as an alternative presentation method of food taste, and it has strong points wherein chronological dynamic nature of food taste is included. When music score is played, the sound frequency patterns is shown at below. The music performances at dinner party is widely held from the reason that it has a positive synergic effect between audio and taste on the satisfaction of dinner. 4 patterns of sound frequency shown here are those of averaged one of the 4 different consumer groups. 2 at left of the university students group and 2 at right are those of monk and deaf groups regarding potato chips respectively. Audience can experience a versatile feelings on the food taste due to the various levels of pitch. Consequently, the musical score can be an alternative presentation of subjective feelings, so-called subjective experience of food and consciousness backgrounds of the consumer. In connection to synesthesia, Barco's pattern, the CSB and CSF are the visual representation of food taste. for the practical use of CSB, a table defined by cognitive sensory evaluation tables was developed to encompass all cognitive sensory evaluation data in a single tabulated image, presenting both numerical score in the circle or triangle. This is the completed cognitive sensory evaluation tables, abbreviated by CSETs, and it represents both the overall and componential responses of the CSQ survey together with the relevant consciousness dimensions for food item both in the line and columns of the table as indicated by red arrows lines. The numerical figures in triangle or circle represents the intensity of response of the questions. The C-set is further simplified to an overall C-set, abbreviated by OC-set for commercial uses. These are the OC-set for 8 food items including coffee, barley tea, peppermint candy, and others. As noticed easily, coffee is highly associated with 7 and 8 consciousness layer, while sports drink is highly related to 5th consciousness layers, the sensorial consciousness. It suggested that coffee is an adequate drink for mental activity. By contrast, sports drink and barley tea are proper products for sensorial-oriented physical activities like sports. Today's talk was focused on the issues regarding food taste, such as news concept for cognitive sensory evaluation of food taste. Thus, cognitive sensory evaluation of food taste was introduced with regard to its methodology, including the measurements and its presentations. As the representations of food taste, audio and visual presentations were demonstrated by musical notes, barcode, and tabulated patterns. I would like to conclude my lecture series with a few general remarks. We is to live and to be happy. Many believe that satisfaction comes from the mind, but few know what the mind is and how it works. I'm sure that food is a wonderful tool to access the mind world because it offers continuous interaction with the mind at conscious and unconscious levels. Metaphysics is started with consciousness theories and closed by introducing some applications of food issues. I hope my lectures benefit you for understanding the consciousness which has immense influence on food life and the scope of food science. I would like to thank to my co-workers for these contributions for the foundation of metaphysics. Thank you for your attention and time to my lecture series. For further information, you can read the book Metaphysics